Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. There was an interesting study that was done, actually a survey more than a study, that was done by Reuters and Ipsos on whether or not people trust the police, as well as if they think police are fair, if they believe that police routinely lie to serve their own interest. The story comes obviously from Reuters, since they were, one of the two entities that put on the survey. The article begins, it says, "Do police officers routinely lie to serve their own interest?" 31% of Americans believe they do, and that number rises to 45% among African Americans, 41% among young people, and 39% among Democrats. Republicans reject the charge 3-1, 60% to 20%. Other questions that were asked, or rather, other questions that were asked were whether or not people approved of the job being done by their local police department. And this might actually be surprising. Nearly 3/4 of Americans say that they approve of the job being done by their local police department. Approval is high among African Americans at 56%, as well as among whites at 77%. Democrats at 72% say that they believe that the job by their local police, or rather that they approve of the job done by their local police, and Republicans at 84%. On the other hand, the article says, the public is divided over whether police officers tend to unfairly target minorities. 37% of all those surveyed agreed, 43% disagreed. Minorities believed that the police unfairly targeted minorities at 69% for African Americans and 54% for Latinos. Fewer than a third of white people responded that they believe so at 29%. The article here continues with something that is fairly interesting. It says that young people do not trust the police, and while that's not surprising, or rather that's not surprising because they're the ones most likely to get in trouble. In the Reuters poll, young people were also more than twice as likely as seniors to endorse the view that police tended to unfairly target minorities, and they've actually changed the wording of this sentence since the last time I read this article a couple days ago. And I hate, I do. I hate when news articles will wind up changing things that are in the middle of their article. Things other than, we discovered that we had an incorrect word or we had an incorrect fact here. So when they go through and they change something fairly significantly, because what this did say was that young people were more likely, in addition to more likely to not trust the police, they were more likely than seniors to live in multicultural societies, or rather a multicultural community, and also more likely to intermix with minorities. And based on some of the other questions here about police unfairly targeting minorities, you can understand then why young people who generally more so than seniors tend to hang out with minorities would not trust the police to be fair. The article here continues, though. It says, these days young Americans are more likely than seniors. Okay, so they just moved the sentence into a different place. These days young Americans are more likely than seniors to live in a multicultural world and interact with minorities. Even young whites were more than twice as likely as white seniors to brand police as racist. 42% for young whites, as opposed to 20% of elderly whites. Do Americans trust the police to be fair and just? 53% say that they do, but that too is a divided issue. The word used in the Reuters article is political, but I don't think that you can necessarily say that some of these demographics are political. They say that only 30% of African Americans trust the police to be fair and just, 43% of young people, 47% of Democrats. That's Democrat is definitely a political demographic, but young people is not a political demographic. The article continues, says that seniors trust the police to be fair and just at 67%, and Republicans at 70%. Overall, these findings are reminiscent of research showing that Americans tend to be highly critical of Congress while they hold a favorable view of their own congressmen. That's why they regularly re-elect over 90% of congressional incumbents, even while denouncing the institution. Education researchers have found that college students tend to give low marks when asked to assess the quality of teaching in their school. However, when asked to rate the quality of teachers in the most recent class they attended, the marks came out higher. The same rule appears to apply here to people's view of police. The police may tend to be unfair and racist, but police officers around here are okay. And there's definitely a parallel there of all of Congress as a whole is bad, but my guy, not so much. Well, police as a whole are bad, but, well, the local cop, he's not that bad. He's a good guy. He's just, he's trying to feed his family. That seems to be the view, and the studies show that seems to be a widely held view. The article here continues. It says the poll also asked people whether they have a favorable impression of the Ferguson Police Department. Very few Americans have any experience with the Ferguson Police Department. They probably didn't even know that Ferguson was a town a year ago. Only 21,000 people live there out of 316 million Americans. What the public knows about the Ferguson Police is what they have seen on television or read in the news. And that is intensely political and racial, according to the survey results. 62% of Americans say they have a favorable impression of the Ferguson Police, but there's a huge difference between African Americans and white people. 32% of African Americans, 69% of white people have a favorable view of the Ferguson Police Department. Republicans, according to the survey, are overwhelmingly favorable to the Ferguson Police, 85%. Democrats are divided, 51% favorable, 49% unfavorable. One question was surprisingly less divisive. Would you approve of your child or future child becoming a police officer? 59% said yes. There's more when we come back on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Coinbase is a simple and secure online Bitcoin wallet for sending, receiving, and storing Bitcoin. Coinbase also allows you to buy and sell Bitcoin using a bank account or use their tools to accept Bitcoin as a merchant. Opening a wallet is quick and easy, and for merchants, there are no transaction fees on the first $1 million worth of transactions. I trust Coinbase. You should too. Get started at coinbase.fppradio.com. Hi, I'm Darryl W. Perry, and I need your help to take Peace, Love, Liberty Radio on the road. In the spirit of Motorhome Diaries and Liberty on Tour, I intend to take the message of peace, love, and liberty on the road. I intend to leave New Hampshire at the conclusion of the New Hampshire Liberty Forum and return at the beginning of PorcFest. During the 104-day trip, I'll be visiting at least 10 cities across the country, speaking to people about the ideas of peace, love, and liberty, while continuing to produce daily Liberty media. Pensacola, Florida, Austin, Texas, Sedona, Arizona, and Denver, Colorado are already on the map. If you have a college group, a local Liberty on the Rocks, or other Liberty meetup that you'd like me to visit, you can possibly add your event to my calendar. To find out more about the tour or to donate, visit tour.fppradio.com. That's tour.fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. Well, you know, it seems as though today is going to be Survey Day, where there have just been several really interesting surveys that have come out recently. One from UPI, or actually UPI is the one that has the story that apparently people who work long hours tend to drink more. The article, again, as I said, from UPI, they write, according to a new study, people who work 48 hours a week or more are likely to drink alcohol more heavily. The study looked at data from over 330,000 people in 14 countries, although they don't say which countries the people were from. They found that people who work more than the average work week were 11% more likely to engage in heavy drinking. Heavy drinking is considered 14 or more drinks per week for women, or 21 drinks or more per week for men. Considering the study analyzed people from 14 countries, 11% translates to 2 million people drinking heavily because of their jobs. The study actually was done by Harvard, the Harvard School of Public Health, or at least that's where the quote there came from. Cassandra Okechukwu, I believe is how you pronounce the name. She's from the Harvard School of Public Health, wrote an editorial for the study. The team of researchers wrote, the workplace is an important setting for the prevention of alcohol misuse because more than half of the adult population are employed. Further research is needed to assess whether preventative intervention against risky alcohol use could benefit from information on working hours. Now, one thing that's interesting here is that they're trying to connect a cause and effect. And I don't think you can necessarily say that because someone works more than 48 hours per week, that is causing them to drink more. It could be that people who work more than 48 hours per week just happen to have more money to buy more drinks, or it could be that they're actually stressed. There needs to really be more study into this. The study actually was published by the British Medical Journal, and I'm actually pulling these up so that hopefully there's more info. There's a article from Science Daily that was linked from the UPI article. So let me go over to the Science Daily article and read what they have to say. It says employees who work more than 48 hours per week are more likely to engage in risky alcohol consumption than those who work standard weeks. Risky alcohol consumption, again, they call it risky, not heavy, but it's 14 or more drinks per week for a woman, 21 or more for a man. It is believed to increase risk of adverse health problems, including liver disease, cancer, stroke, coronary heart disease, and mental disability. In order to protect the health and safety of the workforce, European Union Working Time Directive ensures that workers in European countries have the right to work no more than 48 hours per week, including overtime. But many people, for example, well-educated managers and professionals, work much longer hours to achieve faster promotions, salary increases, and more control over work and employment. Previous research has found a link between working longer hours and risky alcohol consumption, but this has involved only small tentative studies. While alcohol may help to ease the stress of working long periods of time, risky consumption is also associated with difficulties in the workplace, including increased sick leave, poor performance, impaired decision-making, and occupational injuries. And, some of these are just because, it doesn't necessarily, again, it does not necessarily mean that the people are drinking because work is stressful. But, yes, certainly, if you're going to work drunk, then, yes, you are going to wind up, possibly having impaired decisions and occupational injuries. But if you have 14 drinks per week, let's break these numbers down a little bit. Because, 14 per week, most people, that seems like a lot. But 7 days in a week, 14 would be 2 drinks a day. That's not really a lot. When you think about it, that is not a lot. Especially if you think 1 drink with dinner, maybe 1 drink after dinner every day of the week, or 1 drink every day, Monday through Friday. So that'd be 5. And then a couple extra on the weekends, or a couple extra on Friday, a couple extra on the weekends. So, it all depends on how the alcohol is divided, because 2 drinks a day doesn't sound bad. 10 drinks on Friday night, yeah, that's definitely risky. That's not exactly healthy. But the study doesn't break down what day of the week people are having drinks. And again, the 14, that's for women, 21 for men. So, would be 3 drinks a day on average for a man to be considered risky alcohol consumption. And to me, that just seems rather strange. Now, if it's 21 drinks in a single day, yes, definitely risky consumption. But 3 drinks a day, and I don't drink alcohol very much at all. I might have a drink a week, but I'm not going to say that somebody having 3 a day is, an alcoholic, because, you can't necessarily base it entirely on someone, having 2 drinks a day or 3 drinks a day. That does not make one an alcoholic. What makes one an alcoholic is not being able to function without the drinks. So, it could be argued that, well, they have to have the drinks every day when they get home from work, otherwise they can't function. Well, maybe then they're trying to drink to forget about work. But again, I don't think that necessarily makes them an alcoholic. The article continues. It says, Mariana Vertanen and colleagues here provide the first systematic analysis on the association between long working hours and alcohol use. In a cross-sectional analysis of 333,693 people in 14 countries, they found that longer working hours increased the likelihood of higher alcohol use by 11%. A prospective analysis found a similar increase in risk of 12% for onset risk of alcohol use in 100,602 people from 9 countries. Individual participant data from 18 prospective studies showed that those who worked 49 to 54 hours and 55 hours per week or more were found to have an increased risk of 13 to 12%, respectively, of risky consumption. There's more from this, as well as the report from the British Medical Journal, when we come back on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Coinbase is a simple and secure online Bitcoin wallet for sending, receiving, and storing Bitcoin. Coinbase also allows you to buy and sell Bitcoin using a bank account or use their tools to accept Bitcoin as a merchant. Opening a wallet is quick and easy, and for merchants, there are no transaction fees on the first $1 million worth of transactions. I trust Coinbase. You should too. Get started at coinbase.fppradio.com. Hi, I'm Darryl W. Perry, and I need your help to take Peace, Love, Liberty Radio on the road. In the spirit of Motorhome Diaries and Liberty on Tour, I intend to take the message of peace, love, and liberty on the road. I intend to leave New Hampshire at the conclusion of the New Hampshire Liberty Forum and return at the beginning of PorcFest. During the 104-day trip, I'll be visiting at least 10 cities across the country, speaking to people about the ideas of peace, love, and liberty, while continuing to produce daily liberty media. Pensacola, Florida, Austin, Texas, Sedona, Arizona, and Denver, Colorado are already on the map. If you have a college group, a local Liberty on the Rocks, or other Liberty meetup that you'd like me to visit, you can possibly add your event to my calendar. To find out more about the tour or to donate, visit tour.fppradio.com. That's tour.fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. So what do you think? Does drinking, or rather does working more than 48 hours per week cause people to drink more? Or is it one of these correlation does not equal causation sorts of studies? The study here continues. It says the authors point out that no differences were seen between men and women or by age, socioeconomic status, or region. That the only differences they saw were based entirely on the amount of hours per week that one worked. Although in absolute terms, the difference between the groups was relatively small, the authors argue that any exposure with avoidable increases in disease or health-damaging behavior, or both, warrants careful examination. Findings also provide support for the recommended 48 hours per week as enforced by the European Union, the EUWT, which is the European Union Working Time Directive. The workplace... There's a quote here from the team of researchers that says, quote, "The workplace is an important setting for the prevention of alcohol misuse because more than," and this is the same quote that was in the UPI article, and I think it's interesting that they mention more than half of the adult population is employed. Well, you know, one would expect that it would be more than half, but I guess then again you consider all of the people that are retired and the people that are either self-employed and not necessarily included in the statistics of, you know, people who work. So it's really interesting, and that's a topic for another show, is how they determine how many people actually are working, what is considered work. And you know, while I'm on the topic, what is considered work? Really, when you think about it, how do you define work? Is work only that amount of time between you clocking in and clocking out at a job? Or is work anything that you do to either further yourself, further your career, further, you know, whatever sort of pursuit you are after? Because I wake up in the morning, roughly 8 o'clock in the morning, I wake up, I record a newscast. I edit and upload said newscast, and then I begin making telephone calls for Free Talk Live, call program directors. I do affiliate relations. I do that for several hours. When I'm done with that, on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I begin preparing for recording Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. I get done recording the show. I do post-production, which is saving the files, adding in the commercials, uploading, and then posting on social networks that the show has been uploaded. And then after that, there are other things that I do. Sometimes I will be editing a book. Sometimes I will be proofreading something. I will, maybe be formatting something. I might just be reading news so that I know what's going on for writing the newscast for the next day. And at some point during the night, I wind up going to bed. And of course, I will, throughout the day, I'll go over and check Facebook for a little bit. And obviously I eat and do other natural sort of, things. But how do you define work? Because it could be argued that I work from the time that I wake up until the time I go to bed. But I, obviously am not consuming more than 21 drinks per week. I would dare say that I don't consume 21 drinks in 2 months. So you can't necessarily say that because someone works long hours, they are automatically going to drink more. And I know they said it's only an 11% higher chance for the risky alcohol use. But still, it's one of those things to where you can't say correlation is causation, and they don't really define the term work. Now, maybe in the British Medical Journal study they do. I have this open, and the first sentence is, policymakers should think carefully before exempting more hours from restrictions on working hours. So they're, right off the bat, it seems as though they are pushing an agenda that, well, the government should do something about this. And let me just begin reading here. It says, in a linked paper, Vertanen and colleagues present a meta-analysis combining published studies with unpublished studies. And then they have some numbers here that don't really make any sense to me, but probably to some person, in the journaling world might make some sense out of this. It says, let me go back here. It says they present meta-analysis combining published studies with unpublished studies to explore associations between long working hours and the use of alcohol. They found that exposure to long working hours was associated with higher odds of alcohol use in cross-sectional studies. Also compared with working 35 to 40 hours a week, those working 49 to 54, and those working over 55. So they exempted people that are working purely part-time jobs, or I guess people that aren't working at all. They found no heterogeneity in the tested associations based on sex, socioeconomic class, or geographic regions. The meta-analysis supports the long-standing suspicion that among workers subjected to long working hours, alcohol can seem like a fast-acting and effective way to dull work-related aches and pains and soothe the transition between work life and home life. So you can tell based on the usage of the words here from the British Medical Journal that they have an agenda. Again, the first sentence here says policymakers should think carefully before exempting more workers from restrictions on hours, and then saying that people who are subjected to long working hours. Well, some people prefer to work long hours because it means they get overtime. Overtime means that they can earn more money. They save more money. They can then afford to go on that vacation that they've been wanting to go on. They can, take that cruise they wanted. They can buy a better car. They can, renovate their house. They could buy a house. They could buy a bigger house. They could get a better apartment, whatever. So there are all kinds of reasons why people would, quote unquote, subject themselves to long working hours. I will post the links to these articles in the show notes so that you can, if you are so inclined, you can read the study for yourself, make up your own conclusions. People that work long hours, is it, they wind up drinking to forget about it? Or is it just that they can afford more alcohol because they worked overtime? Peace, love, Liberty Radio. Don't forget the AMA every Wednesday, AMA at fppradio.com.